All right, welcome back. New chapter, new class. As we get ready, moving closer to Pesach. So last week's Tanya class delivered a very powerful message, which is, if you're not perfect, it's okay. Like the line, not Jewish. No one's perfect, right? But it means if you're not perfect and a person has thoughts or impulses that are not wholesome and not holy, it's okay. It makes you normal. And it's an opportunity to fight the Yetzer Hara. Yetzer Hara is trying to get you to sin, and every opportunity is no. In fact, today we started in Rambam, in the laws of Maimonides, three chapters, the laws of Teshuvah, repentance. Maimonides says, when do we know that a person's Teshuvah is complete? When he has the opportunity to recommit, and he refrains. So every opportunity to do something wrong is also an opportunity to withstand. So thank God for the opportunity. And we touched on the fact that in the beginning of 27, that if a person feels depressed, that why am I getting these thoughts? The Alter Rebbe told him, hey boy, you need a serious reevaluation of yourself, because why shouldn't you? But that's all if in the middle of the day you have these improper thoughts. What happens if you're trying to daven? You're trying to pray, you're trying to serve God, you're trying to learn, and the distracting thoughts and impulses stop you. Now you got a problem, because now you're trying to serve Hashem, and you can't. Let's get into it. Perek Chav Ches, chapter 28. It picks up as if in the middle of the conversation. And even if those lustful thoughts or extraneous thoughts occur to him during its service of Hashem, whether it's Torah and learning Torah, but tefillah, the kavan he's trying to daven with intent, meaning to think about the meaning of the words, or if a person has learned a little extra, maybe some chassidus, what's going on. It says, Al Yoshis Lev Aleim. Do not pay any attention. El Yasiach Datoi Behem Karega. So if you notice, this is different than last chapter. Last chapter, we said, oh, beautiful. Now I have the opportunity to say no. But when you say no, there's a kind of an interaction. You want me to say, yeah, no. But it's during davening, the Alter Rebbe is saying, don't interact. Just change the channel. Don't be a fool. To try to elevate it. Because there's a school of thought that there's godliness in everything, right? So even in the bad, there's an opportunity to elevate it. So a guy might think, here I am having a immoral thought in the middle of davening. Oh, so it's an opportunity to say, where's it coming from? Why am I doing this? And to work through all those immoralities, all those the dark places inside my soul. Alter Rebbe says during davening, that's not the time for therapy. Kaneda, like it's known, we see the note on after the word Kaneda and the old Prince 367. Probably where's that note? Which page?
377.
Yeah, 377. Every thought stems. 376. Every thought stems from one of the midos of the animal soul. For example, the midah of love comes from chesed, right? But the animal's midah of chesed gives rise to lustful thoughts. The midah of gevura, of fear, gives rise to hate, and so a person might try to.
You would translate gevura to fear.
Nah, I mean it depends. But it's a very loose.
Started with fear.
Yeah, it's a very loose translation. Okay. Gevura is depending on the context. Gevura is discipline, fear, it's restriction, it's force,
emotional force.
Yeah, force. It's all focused. Gevura is focused. Chesed is not focused. Chesed is like the Purim pinata. Come and get it. It's out. It's out for everybody.
Would you put yourself on the left or the right column?
I don't know.
Personally,
I don't.
Do you find yourself more gvura or more chesed?
I think about myself rather. Like Jerry Seinfeld says, Says when young boys are growing up and they read about Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, these aren't fantasies; these are options.
So which one are you? Are you
Spider-Man.
Batman.
you're Gibor or you're Chassid?
Gibor, no, that's too much trolling. Therefore, rather than applying his desire here, well, therefore, guys figures he's going to elevate the midah of the animal soul and thus destroy the evil. But the problem is that is only when can you elevate something? So there's a line in the Gemara: a person from jail can't release himself. You can't pick yourself up from yourself. That means if you want to do chin-ups, you need a bar. You can't lift yourself up from yourself. So the Beinoni wants to elevate himself, or wants to elevate something. The problem is, the Beinoni's problem is that's who he is. You can elevate something when you're distant from it. But when you're struggling with it, so would you, if a guy, let's say you own Total Wine or something, the guy comes in with his resume, he says, "What? Yeah, he just graduated from AA." Listen, I'm very happy that you recovered, but I don't think this is the place for you, right?
It is.
That's how he makes his amends.
Right.
Turn people away. You don't want that.
Yeah.
Anyone that tells you that they graduated from AA, just
Yeah, you can tell their life.
But basically-
One day at a time.
Actually, better.
Yeah.
But if you're going to destroy your life, try the stuff on the shelf. It's much better. Yeah. Just do it, right? So he says, "Kiloi nemru devarim hayim al tzadikim." Who can elevate? Only the righteous. Because remember, the righteous, the tzadikim, have this kind of distant relationship. They're aware of it, but they're not affected by it. She'ein niflim lahem achshav zayir shelahem. They don't have any evil thoughts of their own. Only of others. What does that mean? A tzaddik's job, we learned that the Jewish people are one unit. The tzaddik is the head of the generation, and the head feels the pain, and the head's job is to direct it. So there was a story of the Mittler Rebbe. At one time, a guy came and he was telling him about all these awful things he was doing and how he needed to get better. And the Mittler Rebbe rolled up his sleeve and he showed that he had unhealthy skin. And he said, he told the guy, he said, "This is from, the sins, the community." He felt, and he felt what the Jewish people were doing. In fact, last week's Torah portion, we read Hashem tells Moshe after the Jewish people sin in the golden calf. Hashem tells Moshe, "You go down, lech reid, you descend." Why Moshe didn't sin? Why is Hashem telling Moshe to descend? I mean, it's a pretty.
You go down to the sea what your people are doing. It sort of refers to what is being instigated by the Erev Rav.
But Rashi quotes a famous Gemara. So the only reason why you're a big shot is because you're standing on the shoulders of the Jewish people. You're elevated because the Jewish people are elevated. The Jewish people descended. Now you go down. In fact, you should know that the level of prophecy after the sin of the Meraglim, of the spies, the level of prophecy for Moshe for 38 years was on Moshe.
Wait, the Meraglim. Do you mean after the golden calf or the spies?
I jumped to a different story.
No, but did his prophecy descend from there to there?
No. That was. We went back up, but after the sin of the golden spies, of the spies.
Yeah, the 38 years.
Yeah. So Moshe's prophecy was a lot lower, a lot less.
Silent. God was silent.
But on the other hand, it does say that he enjoyed a open communication. So.
Yes, but he also did it because it was either God or the angel.
I understand. So the point is that a tzaddik doesn't have evil thoughts of his own. A tzaddik has the problem that we have. There was a story of the Rebbe Marash, who had an attendant, and the Rebbe would have every Rebbe had his own schedule. They have something called Yechidus. Yechidus is a private audience. A private audience is a soul-to-soul connection. A person would go to the Rebbe and ask him advice and what to do. And in the middle of the night, the Rebbe Maharash would ask his attendant for a new.
This is Sharabi, right?
No, Rebbe Rashab stands for Rebbe Maharash. Sorry, Rebbe Maharash. Moreinu Rabbi Shmuel.
Okay.
And he asked his attendant for a change of clothing. That's why, because his clothing was wet with sweat. So at the end of the night, he asked the Rebbe, he said, I don't understand, why are you sweating so much?
Diabetic. Sorry.
By the way, you should know, it could be he was. He wasn't healthy. He had a lot of health problems. In fact, there's a whole debate if there's a picture of him. He passed away in 1880 something. The legend is there is a picture of him, but the Rebbe did not allow it to be published because he doesn't look healthy.
But I think you told this story once before earlier in Tanya, where you said something to the effect of like the Rebbe was putting on others' clothes.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. This is the story I'm saying, right? So a guy came to the Rebbe with a problem about serving God to a perfect tzaddik, struggling with chocolate cake. How can he give you advice? So he has to sort of get into your head, understand it from your vantage point, and then he has to get back into his Rebbe head. So he said, you're saying over here, a tzaddik doesn't have the problem. Also, only when same thing, but when you go to, let's say you're indecisive. What do? You ask a friend. Why are you asking a friend? Because he's an expert? No. Because you're hoping that he's not tainted by your emotional, is it a good decision or a bad decision? He's objective. Because to him it doesn't make a difference either way. So a tzaddik can elevate the evil. Aval 368 in the old print. Aval misha naifol loy misha loy. But somebody has his own problem, because of his own evil thought. Why? Because he still has evil. Remember, a tzaddik doesn't have evil inside of him. That the Beinoni still has evil. How can he ascend up? But when he's bound down here. The famous story, I've told the story before, with the mayor in Parmishlan and the mikveh. Remember the story, Eric? No? A mayor was an older gentleman, a rabbi from Parmishlan. And he would, every time he would go to the mikveh, it was another side of a hill. Winter, summer, he'd always go the same route. Everyone in the winter would have to go circumvent the hill because it's covered in ice. He went up and down. So one time these two young guys came and said, there's got to be some trick. They tried to follow the mayor up the hill, and they slipped, they hurt themselves. And they asked the mayor they came to the mayor afterwards and they asked him mechila, forgiveness. They realized he was a special person. They said, Batel, we're young people and we fell. You're an older guy, how come you don't fall? So he says, because the mayor is connected up there, he doesn't fall down here. But if a person's tied down here, how are you going to elevate? You know, in the Torah, in chapter 34 of Tehillim, we haven't done that one, right? Chapter 34 of Tehillim, King David says, Mi Isha Chafetz Chaim. Who is the man that desires life? He says, Sur Mira, turn away from evil, and do good. You can't just one day, like those guys that come to court, say, don't send me to prison. Why? I found the Lord. I'm a new person. Thank you very much, but you robbed the bank. You're going to jail, right?
That also happens almost exactly like that in Israel.
What do you mean?
The best criminals somehow always find a kippah right before they walk into court.
By the way, I went to visit jails. It's some of the times these guys. So I'll never forget this one guy. I've said this before, I think. One guy had a bigger yarmulke than me. Well, to have a longer beard than me doesn't take much. But he had a long beard, and he came into the class. I don't even know if I even brought a book. I think I was saying something from up here. He had a sitter and a chayenu. The guy looked like a rabbi. I'm like, this guy's for sure in for tax evasion, right? For sure. And he was an older guy, must have been 50, and he spoke softly. He seemed like the nicest, most calm. I said, probably, you
For
know,
a triple murder.
okay, yeah, he butchered his wife and his mother-in-law, I think it was.
No way.
Yeah.
He really didn't like his book.
Yeah. I'll tell you, so,
That was
Put raisins in the kugel.
that was where
That'll
in
happen.
America.
I used to go visit the Broward County jails.
Oh my.
Yeah. So, I
Do you
mean,
still do that?
no, not anymore because it was chaos. I'd go to jail sometimes, and they didn't, and the prisoners didn't know I would go. And I told the guys, listen, I have no problem volunteering my time, but I'm not going to drive there and waste my time.
Yeah.
So it fell apart. The jails.
Remind me to tell you the story what happened to Levi with Rabbi Orach at FSU.
Oh yeah. By the way, and
I don't think they let you with Tefillin past the gate in jail, right? Kind of like a.
depending on the prison. No, they do. But one time I went to visit somebody in a.
The maximum security.
No. I haven't been to maximum. I've been to medium. There's people for emotionally disturbed. I don't know what you call it.
Double murder is not maximum.
No. It's there's a place on University in Washington, I think it
You
is.
mean like almost like
South State, I think it's called.
like a mental
boy.
institution?
Yeah, kind of, but yeah. So
Like a halfway house?
over there, you can't. No, it's not halfway. It's full way.
Okay.
Um,
Well, yeah,
over there, you
no
can't.
shoelaces, nothing.
I can't remember shoelaces,
those.
but filling definitely not. I went to visit some guy. Yeah, there. I've been to prisons in Yazoo, Mississippi, in Louisiana. It was very interesting.
How quickly from there do you make it to a mikveh?
Very interesting. Very interesting. Anyway, so the point is that in order to elevate, you have to be, you have to be above.
In a suitcase.
You have to be above. If you want to help me up, you know, you got to be above to lift me up. If we're both stuck in the
Schmutz.
in the schmutz, then there's a hard. However, nevertheless, the Alter Rebbe continues. It says, still, you believe by Bekirbai. It says, still, don't be downhearted, don't be downtrodden. We should be dejected, and despicable, when you daven. Guys think, okay, my whole davening is nothing. Every time I try to daven, I'm thinking of some shiksha or something, right? I can't. So my whole davening is nothing. It says, because your job is to daven with joy. So it says, just the opposite. Should it contend? You focus. You totally tune them out. You should be strengthening yourself more. With more intensity. With all your power, all your strength. With the attention of tefillah. To pray with concentration. You say and even more gladness. By taking to heart, to realize, can you feel it? Why are you getting this foreign thought, this immoral thought? This is from the Klippa, right? And that's where it's coming from. Zugazun. And you, like we said in chapter 27, that the Beinoni is in a constant state of battle. And now davening is war. In fact, there's a reference in a pasuk that you go davening. When he said, "Go out to war." I used to take my kids, tell my kids to daven and say, let's go to war. My kids say, "Why do you say that?" Because that's what it is. It's a war. When you want to daven and your nefesh habahamis, your animal soul, is fighting you. When you meet resistance, when you're putting up a fight. If you don't put up a fight, there's no resistance. The fact that you're trying to concentrate in your prayer, and some idiotic thought enters your mind, doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you're doing something right. You're probably thinking, "Wow, I do things right a lot." Yeah.
Even though my wife says.
Right? So he says, yeah.
There's a rabbi from during the time of the Holocaust. He wrote a lot of crazy things, like a lot of great material came out of it when he was during the Holocaust, and he said that all the thoughts that occur to him that are like crazy or not his, he would sit and he would observe them, and he would call them out and be like, "That's clearly not what I think." That's not my thought. And after a while, he would it was a narrator's voice that he realized was him, and all of these thoughts were really not his. They were just like things that he was receiving.
Right.
If we're praying and we're proper radios, and you're receiving all these thoughts, you should understand they're not yours.
So what do you do? What happens when you get to a station you don't like? What do? You switch the station.
Well,
So that's what Al is
it's
saying
like
here.
master level. If you're hearing it, you should just tell yourself maybe you're doing it right. You're tuning so high that you're starting to pick up on other
but don't.
things.
Yes, you're doing something right, but don't interact with it.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying. Ignore it. But Noida, and you should know the 369, and you should know
378.
Yeah, derech al nilchamim, the way of fighting, and of coming yachad. Also, when people are wrestling, when one person is about to win, is gaining the upper hand. Ozai then hasheni misamis eskaber. Then the opponent puts up the big fight. But why? Because he's afraid he's going to lose. So if an immoral thought never pops into your mind, that means you're not davening. Yeah. Because that means your nefesh abahamis, your yetzer hara doesn't feel challenged. If when you're trying to do a mitzvah, you feel challenged by yetzer hara, that means you're doing something right. So it's just like when two people are wrestling, gam am say koyachai. So the losing wrestlers, for example, is going to give his last strength. Therefore, kishnefesh al kiss. When the divine soul decides, okay, we are going to wants to exert itself and musters its strength to daven. Then what's going to happen? Nefesh Bahamas is not going to take that laying down. Remember, we spoke about all the way in the beginning of Tanya. The person is like a small city, and each king wants to control the entire city. So now the Nefesh Halakis is laying not siege, but it's attacking to control the whole city. Nefesh Bahamas is not going to say, okay, take it. No, they're going to fight.
Where's the nefesh hasichli in this challenge?
Nefesh hasichli is a human brain, is a human soul. This is godly and animal. There's not
So
not
he's sitting
human.
this one out?
No, he's more identified sometimes with Nefesh Halakis, sometimes with Nefesh Bahamas. But usually,
this one particular thing,
usually
where is he?
he's identified with the Nefesh Halakis, the godly soul.
So right now,
'Cause
can you channel that to be more nefesh elochi?
Yeah, because
So that way
the chapter
you get
12.
more of a victory.
Yeah, because chapter 12, the mind rules the heart. If you use your intellect, you'll always make the right decision.
So you okay. I'm taking
And the godly soul
the third
rests.
person perspective is me, and the nefesh hasichli focusing all my energy into nefesh
Yeah, well,
elochi
so
instead of giving any attention.
You skipped a few classes, but if you remember, we said, if you go back, you said that the Alter Rebbe gave the example of a bet din.
There was a bird flu.
Yeah, exactly. There was he was hoarding eggs. There was the Alter Rebbe gave the example of a person is like a panel, a court, a bet din. In Judaism, there's never one judge. The minimum is three. So you have the Yetzer Hara, the Nefesh Bahamid in one, you have Nefesh Halakit in the other, and you are the arbitrator. You are the deciding judge. Yeah, Nefesh Hasichli, you have the ability to decide who you're going to follow.
Well, no, you have you're directing energy.
Yeah.
Which side are you
100%.
directing?
100%.
The sichli
So it
is
doesn't
there.
mean it actually will tie it in nicely into this chapter.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean the Nefesh Bahamas doesn't have an opinion. It has an opinion.
There.
You just don't listen to
They're
it.
in a wrestling match. What do you mean?
Exactly. Azai then gamma a clip of when the godly soul wants to pray, then the animal soul too gathers strength to counter it. Lababala to confuse it, lapila to topple it. How does it do it? By means of a foreign thought of its own. The law rejects now a common misnomer, common understanding. And not the mistakes that the people make, a common error. They mistakenly think to infer from this, from the fact that a person has a foreign thought occurring during davening, it means your davening wasn't anything, wasn't worth anything. And because I mistakenly think, if I would have prayed properly and correctly, then it wouldn't have been any And any foreign thoughts. It says va'emes. So remember all the way back in the beginning, we asked a question. We actually said the Alter Rebbe was coming to answer a question a person is struggling with. Am I a godly figure? Am I a more earthly figure? What am I? And the thing the person was bothered by. If I'm a godly figure, why do I have base and low desires? And if I'm an earthly figure, how come I don't feel content when I indulge myself? So the Alter Rebbe said, you're both. So going back into what we're saying now. So if it was true, this would be correct. If a person only had one identity, one consciousness, and if a person has one consciousness and you're focused on one thing, and all of a sudden you start thinking of chocolate, something's wrong with you, right? You have ADHD of the soul, right? So I mean, but something's wrong with you.
Well,
but
of the nefesh.
Of the nefesh. But for example, let's say you and your friend are somewhere. Your friend notices something, and you notice something else. Hey, do you see that? No. What's wrong with you? How come you didn't see it? So what do you mean? Because I was looking here, and you're looking there. Right? You didn't see the rainbow? No. You didn't see the shooting star? No. Why not? Look. So that's what happened. You have two litigants inside of you. One is focused on one. One's focused on another. No. So because the nefesh halakis is focused on davening, who says your animal soul is going to be focused on davening? Of course, she's not. Nefesh Bahamas is always going to be focused on good sandwiches and pretty girls. That's his job.
Don't forget the chocolate cake.
And the chocolate cake. So we're saying, so a person shouldn't feel bad that his nefesh Bahamas is functioning properly. Yeah, normal thing. So you just have to learn to ignore it. But the truth is, a person has two consciousness, two souls that are constantly fighting one with the other over the person's mind. Every single one, every single king wants to chafetza, desires, ritzaina, and wants limshal boy to totally rule over the person. And to pervade, every soul wants to pervade the minds exclusively.
There's up to 4 nefashot a person can have.
Every person has 4 nefashos. Every Jewish person has 4 nefashos. Not up to. Every person has.
According to who?
No, this is.
Is this Tanya that you're saying that?
Yeah. Well,
because
you have your nefesh choynes, nefesh sichlas, nefesh bahamas, and nefesh galakis. That's your.
No, I'm talking about the 4 nefashot. You can have up to 4 nefashot.
To one nefesh ruach chay neshama that.
No.
What are you talking about then?
I'm talking about shari gilgulim.
That's something else. Okay, but you're going somewhere.
I'm trying to think. Maybe is this what they're referring about? Like when you have another nefesh.
No. This is talking about here. You have your 2 consciousness inside of you.
So this is a conscious kind of. This is not nefesh, literal nefesh.
It is a nefesh. It's literal nefesh. Nefesh. You have your godly. You have your godly self, and you have your earthly self. Your earthly self wants to do things that are earthly. It doesn't interest it.
Okay, so
davening doesn't. Just like you can't get nourishment from grass. The godly soul doesn't get nourishment from cars, and the animal soul doesn't get nourishment from davening. So they're talking 2 different languages.
2 different, yeah. This is semantically, this is 2 different nefesh.
Yeah, it's just so, and each one, the godly soul says, "Why are you bringing me cars? I have 0 interest. Don't bring it here. Goodbye." And the animal soul says, "Why do you bring me tefillin?" Says, "Get it away from me." L'chol hiro hore Torah, and any thought of Torah. V'yirah shemayim, and the fear of heaven, nefesh halakis, from the godly soul, v'chol amid the alma b'nefesh bahamas, and all worldly matters come from nefesh bahamas. They're talking about 2 different languages. Rak. So what's the problem? The problem is they're related to each other. Right? So you can't pick your sister-in-law. She's your family, right? The nefesh halakis is forced to be in this prison cell with this. With the nefesh bahamas, and the problem is, the nefesh halakis is the brains in operation, and the nefesh Bahamas is the muscle. And nefesh Elokis can't do anything without muscle. It wants to put on tefillin, but it can't. It wants to learn Torah, but it can't. It needs the animal. It needs the body. You know, one of the things the Baal Shem Tov said that people would punish their bodies. Why? To try to knock out the animal soul, to feel less physical. Baal Shem Tov says, but if you don't have a body, if you don't have a healthy body, you also can't do a mitzvah.
He says, I tried that.
No, Baal Shem Tov doesn't try.
There was a thing where, like, I remember a quote where he's like, I tried doing those methods and it's not worth it.
Okay, I have to look into if Baal Shem Tov tried it. I'm not going to say yes or no, but I'm not familiar. But the Baal Shem Tov says, if you're sick and you're not in the mood of chocolate cake, you also can't go to shul. Right?
You can't walk in the forest and talk to animals if you can't walk.
Well, he walked into the
Okay,
forest.
Eric.
No, the
Baal Shem Tov.
the
there's
Baal
no
Shem-
connection
Talk to
there.
animals?
The Baal Shem Tov walked into
What?
the forest and met the Samach Mem.
Like,
And there's
Baal
a
Shem
whole
Tov
parable
spoke to
like that.
animals? Baal Shem Tov spoke to animals?
Baal Shem Tov, I don't know about his thing. I know that Baal Shem Tov, there's a whole story about how he went into the forest as a child.
yeah.
And he walked into the area where the Samach Mem was, and he was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And he said a tale. I forgot which tale it was, but that's how a lot of the witchcraft and all the warlord stuff like sort of ended. Baal Shem Tov ended a lot of that.
Yeah, but that's this. I think you're mixing up two stories.
Oh, no,
With a child, he used to go into the forest. He didn't like
Yeah.
to see the people, and he met one of the hidden tzaddikim, and the guy was learning there. And the guy said, "Aren't you afraid?" He said, "No." He said, "Who's your father?" And he told him who his father was, and he said, "Okay, come with me." That's how he took the Baal Shem Tov under his wing. But okay, we're going.
That's another story. What
Yeah.
you just said, what I said, are two different stories.
Okay. Anyway, so Zrak shall kiss. Sorry, for who commercial other spell b'kavan. So what's going on? So you have a guy, and he comes to shul, and he wants to daven, and then you have some guy who decides he doesn't care about davening. Okay, we'll research the Baal Shem Tov stories after that.
I'm listening.
And you have some other guy in shul who he decides he doesn't give a hoot about davening. He needs to talk about the Yankees. And you happen to be sitting by the same table. So here, guys, Rosh Hashanah. The guy's trying to concentrate, right? And guys, oh, you heard about the Yankees? And he's trying to say, shh, quiet. Say, don't tell me to be quiet. I can do whatever I want. So he's trying to concentrate davening Rosh Hashanah. This guy's talking about the Yankees. What are you going to do? You going to punch him in the face? You can't. So what do you do? You ignore him. You try to concentrate as best as possible. That's what he's saying. The guy's trying to daven with intent. All Russia. And a person, he sends a wicked heathen, and speaking with him in order to confuse him. You know, you remember that story I told you about the Tanya? I forgot who it was davening on the side of the road, and a Roman general came and said and introduced himself, and the rabbi ignored him.
Yeah.
And the guy said he spoke a little bit louder, and the rabbi continued to ignore him. And finally, when the rabbi finished Amida, he said, "You didn't hear me?" He said, "I heard you. Do you not know who I am?" I said, "I know who you are. You don't know what I can do to you? I know what you can do to me. So why don't you answer me?" He says, "Imagine you were speaking to Caesar and I came and said hello. What would you do?" He said, I would ignore you. So why? Because it's disrespectful. I'm talking to Caesar. Okay, I'm talking to God. Caesar's boss. Right? So I ignore you. He heard him, but he chose to ignore him. He says, this is the best advice. Don't answer the guy about the Yankees or the Red Sox or whatever it is. Don't get into it. You should become a mute. You should become a deaf mute. You don't hear. You totally ignore Lakaya Mashakosov, and to fulfill what it says in Mishlei. King Solomon said, "Altan ksil kulosei." Answer not a fool according to his folly. Pentishvale gamata, lest you become like him. What did Mark Twain said? It's better to leave your mouth closed and leave people in doubt whether you're a fool, or to open your mouth and remove all doubt. right? So if a guy is being an idiot, let him be an idiot. Don't get into it with him. Just like an analogy, the guy standing outside of you, disturbing you. So now the idiot's inside of you, and he's trying to bother you. Just like you don't engage with that guy, you don't engage. You should not answer or engage in the argument against the forward thought. Why? Because the fact of the matter is, one who wrestles with a filthy person, he becomes dirty himself. The fact that's the fact. Rak yasa atzmai, he should make himself kaloi yoida. He doesn't know kaloi shameya. He doesn't hear how hurdim shenafuloi, the thoughts that are occurring to him. And this is the main line here. Visira midata, and he should dismiss them from his mind. Change his channel. And add reinforcements and try to dive in even with more concentration. And if he finds it difficult, to remove them from his mind, because he's really distracted, and he's really finding it hard to daven. Then yashbal nafshel Hashem. He should humble his nefesh soul before God, and ask Hashem. Say, listen, God, you created me this way. You gave me this Torah. I'm trying to serve you, and this guy is bothering me. Could you help me out of here? Could you please? Don't you know spell something? A nice cross hook.
Just make sure to do all this out loud so that everyone around you knows that you're a lunatic.
Yeah. Karachim of Abanim. By the way, there was a chassid of
What are you doing? Shut up, get it.
There was a chassid of the Alter Rebbe, who whenever the Yetzer Hara would, he said he would use pride against the Yetzer Hara. Whenever the Yetzer Hara would try to get him to sin, he would speak to the Yetzer Hara, say, "Excuse me, do you know who you're talking to? I am a chassid of the Alter Rebbe. How dare you even think that I'm going to sin? Now get away." He would literally talk himself out of sinning.
All right, let's finish this because we have a quick side note at the end.
Karachim of Abanim, like a father has mercy on his son, and we said it back in chapter 2. A son stems from a father's brain, which means they're very, very
The white in his eyes.
right. The white, which means they have a very, very strong connection, even though sometimes the connection seems distant. And the famous line that Hashem wants us to do better, and Hashem says, "You put in the effort, you start, and when you ask me for help, I'll be there to help you." To save him from the turbulent waters, and he should do this for his own sake, like we say in davening. Say, help us, lamancha, for your sake. Okay. I'll pretend I know what that is. Because the fact of the matter is, Hashem wants you to succeed because you have a godly part inside of you.
To do is call.
Could you be quiet? And the nefesh, your soul, is in a state of exile instead of galus. Hashem wants you to redeem that godliness. So you got to do your part. We learned 2 parts here. Number 1, don't be dejected. Number 2, don't engage. And number 3, if you find it difficult, employ help. Ask for help. Have a good week.
Wait, and we also learned that yes, the Baal Shem Tov spoke to animals. And yes, the Baal Shem Tov did initially experiment with ascetic practices, including fasting and self-denial, in his pursuit of spiritual growth, but said it wasn't worth it.
Okay.
However, he later rejected
Any other
extreme
side of this?
asceticism.
Wait, where are you reading this? No. You don't get to say whatever you want.